Hey guys, Curt Graham, VP of Brokerage here at Elite Insurance Partners, back with another edition of Inside EIP, looking into how we got to where we are today and the people that got us there. And we're going to talk about the process that it takes to hire all of the agents that have grown us to the place that we are, go into some of the details that we have, what we've learned over the years. Today, we've got the recruiting manager with us, Lisandra Armenta. First thing I want to do to jump right in is just, Lisandra, how long have you been with Elite Insurance Partners? And was this your first time in a position like this?
Yeah, so I've actually just celebrated 4 years at EIP in April this year. And prior to that, I was already in recruiting. I spent about 6 years in recruiting before I received this role here. So it's been amazing this last 4 years to see the growth that we've seen here at EIP.
And you were you recruiting generally for a lot of other businesses, or was it specifically an insurance recruiting position?
Yeah, so I first started at an agency. So we recruited for nurses actually that participated in school functions. And then from there, I was hired on to be the corporate recruiter at the agency. So that kind of started my career in in-house recruiting, and then was over at another small company, recruited in-house there as well. So it's been in different industries. So this was my first time in insurance working here.
Has the insurance industry been more challenging, or what have you found?
Yes, I think insurance is definitely challenging now that the word is going out that this is one of the best industries to be in, right? No matter if there's a pandemic or recession, insurance is typically one of the businesses that flourish in that time. So in order to get the right candidates, we definitely have to make sure that we're advertising the role. And I think we've done a great job in not only advertising the role, but also making sure that we have a great name behind EIP to make it easy for candidates to apply and recognize us as well.
Okay, so what I want to do is I want to take a step back to when you started at EIP. We can kind of leave behind the previous positions that you were in, but when you started here, when the recruiting process was going on, how many people were you guys recruiting at a time?
Yeah, so back in 2021, we were actually back in the Palm Harbor office. So on average, we were looking at around 5 to 10 sales agents per class.
Okay, so we do basically a class a quarter on the Medicare side. Now we've started also our life division, so that we've got a little bit more aggressive recruiting schedule this year. How many classes do we have this year?
So this year we're going to probably have 6 we're looking at because we're going to keep expanding with our life insurance class. So yeah, usually around every 8 weeks, we're typically looking to hire for another class.
And how big are the classes that we're recruiting nowadays?
So now it's triple the size that we were recruiting back in 2021. Right now, we're averaging about 25 to 28 per class. But for the remainder of the year, we are looking at at least 30 agents per class.
Okay, so that's a lot of that's a big change from 7 to 10. Now we're talking about 30 people a class. How has that change been for you? What is the process? Do we do phone screens? How does it work?
I think the biggest challenge is volume, right? To hire 30 great agents, we need to review at least 3,000 applicants. Us at EIP, we're really intentional on those we bring on. So we hire just about 1% of those that apply. So to really meet that demand, we rely on Indeed. That's usually the bulk of our hiring, and that's when we review applicants. But our most valuable source is actually referrals. So we try to tap into our referrals in-house, just ask our agents, like, if you know anyone, bring them in. We have a really great referral program here that incentivizes them for that. But yeah, our process starts with reviewing applicants. That's our number one process, is doing that. And then from there, we have phone screen, a virtual interview, and an in-person interview as well.
Okay, and the phone screen, is that done by a person or is it a recording?
Oh, yeah. So everything is done here by my recruiting team here. So the first step is the phone screen. So that typically is a 15-minute phone interview. And during that call, we'll assess, their culture fit. That's number one above all. We also look at their tonality and just really their overall drive. If the phone screen goes well, then really the next step is our online sales assessment. This is really a key part of our process because it just really helps us identify candidates that share the same traits, characteristics as our top performing agents. So after the phone screen, if we feel like they're a great match, we go ahead and send them that sales assessment.
When it comes to this assessment, it's a sales assessment, but how does it judge somebody on sales? Is it voice questions and they have to respond back that way, or is it a multiple choice questionnaire?
Yeah, it's multiple choice questionnaire. Typically takes about 30 to 35 minutes to complete it. So it's important during the phone interview that we build the value as to why we do the assessment. And again, the value is that we want to ensure that this is going to be a great fit for those that we bring on, a long-term fit. So we use this assessment to just ensure that, again, they have those traits we see in our top performers here. So it's multiple choice. It gauges them on, I think, about 80 different points. And these are different criterias like the closing. So are they willing to let the person hang up right away? Or are they willing to ask more questions? They also look at hunting. Are they an individual that would like to pick up the phone and dial somebody? Or are they just going to wait for someone to call them? So really just, describes what their motivation, their drive is by asking certain questions in those assessments.
Sounds pretty scientific, to put it mildly. Were we always using this? Has this been a tool that you've used the entire time?
No, so we started using started using the sales assessments about 2 years ago. And prior to that, we were using another personality test, but there was something missing. We didn't know, besides what their personality was or their culture fit, we wanted to know a little bit more about their sales abilities, more than what they're telling us over the phone. So the sales assessment gauges those things that we don't normally hear or normally someone doesn't tell you during a phone screen.
I've interviewed people in the past, and sometimes you just have a situation where they're telling you what you want to hear. Do you find this tool something that's hard to game where people, just can't really fake it?
Yeah, well, we've definitely seen people try to fake it. So there's ways that the assessment will let you know. They'll score the sales DNA lower if they notice that the individual is not answering the questions consistently. They'll ask the same questions multiple times to see if there's any consistent answers. They also gauge if the individual is what we say Christmas treeing the test. If they just try to go through it, just waste of time. Hey, I'm not taking my time on this. It'll score them really, really low. But the good news is we don't use it as the only way to determine if they're a good fit. We use it as part of the decision if we feel like they're a good fit.
And then they come in for an in-person interview, I'm guessing, if they've passed the phone screen as well as the assessment. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the next part of the process is once they complete the assessment, we do a virtual call. So I have a sales recruiter here, and what his point of the interview is he'll talk to the candidate and dive a little bit deeper on their whys. We want to understand their motivation and what they're trying to accomplish in this. Is this going to be a long-term goal for their career? And also their culture fit again. So we touch on that in every single point of the interview. So that's a 30-minute virtual call after they complete the assessments. If they pass that test, if they're a good fit, then their next role is to come into our office to meet our sales director.
So we're looking for people that aren't necessarily looking for a job, but actually starting a career and making this a part of their life for the long haul.
Yeah. So we're very intentional throughout the whole entire recruiting process. We ensure that this is not just another job for them, right? This is a career move because we do invest a lot in our agents here, and we want to make sure that if they come through, that they're going to be here for the long run. And our sales director, he does a really great job in talking them out of the job when they're here. He talks a lot about the expectations, ensuring that they understand, that, we have big expectations from them, because if they're able to get through training and get through the process, then they are going to make a really great career out of here. But it does take someone who has the tenacity, the motivation, the drive, the hunger to be successful in order to be competitive in this industry.
What are some of the different red flags that you look for in a person besides not showing up to the interview, because I know that happens quite a bit for different jobs that are out there where people just don't show up. And it's like, my cat got sick. Can I show up tomorrow? Situation.
I've heard every excuse under the sun for that. But really the first thing, I mean, when we're looking at their resume, right, that's our first impression of someone. If we see their longevity in companies are less than 6 months, if they're hopping around different roles, that tells us a little bit about the individual. Maybe either they haven't found the right position, or they may not have that mental toughness that we look for candidates, especially in a sales role like ours. Because those first 6 months, mostly training, right? A lot of our agents can doubt themselves, but those that are able to pass those 6 months and break through and are graduated to senior agents, that's when the breakthrough comes in, and that's when they're making the big bucks. So really the longevity in their previous roles is a big one. Yes, attending the phone interview is definitely number one on that. But also when they talk about their future goals, how does EIP fit into your future goals? Is this something that you're just looking for a job, or have you thought about this? Have you thought about sales and how that's going to impact, let's say, your family? Is that your motivation? So there's certain things we look at the phone interview to help us determine if they're just looking for this as a job, or they've thought about it and they're looking for a long-term career out of EIP.
Now, with all of the hiring that we do, and we've mainly spoken about just the sales positions and our licensed agents, do we hire only licensed agents, or do we only hire unlicensed agents? What is that?
Yes, so we hire both. Initially, we were focused on just hiring licensed agents, more so those that have experience. But since then, we've really refined our training program. So we're able to use that to hire both unlicensed and licensed agents as well.
Is it a longer hiring process for somebody that's unlicensed because they have to get their license? How do we handle that?
Yeah, I mean, so at the end of the day, we're focused on hiring the right people. So whether they're licensed or not, the first thing my team looks at is if they're a strong culture fit. So we definitely want to ensure that they're going to be a good fit. So if those people are unlicensed and they're a good culture fit, they have the right drive and motivation, and we do hire them on, the process is a little bit longer for them because they do have to go through the training program to get their 215. So once they're hired, they jump right into that program. It's a 4-day course to get their license. And we have a great follow-up with them. We follow up with them every day to just ensure their success during that training program, to ensure they are hired. And those that are already licensed, they don't have to go through that. They just start with us on the day one when it comes to Medicare or Life 101.
Now, a lot of people complain and say, oh, the generation now, they don't want to work. And I've walked the floor at EIP, the sales floor, and we've got a mix. But we do have a pretty young agent population, I would say. Our agents, they've got experience, but they're young. Have you found it difficult to hire Gen Z or Gen X or whatever the new generation that we're supposed to complain about nowadays is?
Gen Z, I guess. No, I mean, as we continue to grow, we have to adapt, right? We have to be intentional on looking at, the workforce and what's out there. And Gen Z, from my experience, they want to work. They're hungry, but they're looking for certain things that may be different than us millennials. Really with Gen Zs, I think that there's 3 things that they look at. They really want a job that provides growth and development. They also look at a good culture fit, and then they also look at compensation. But surprisingly, the first 2 is normally what they look at. They want to see growth. They want to work for a company that can deliver on that upward mobility that they're looking for. So we try to be transparent during the phone screen by letting them know, hey, we're privately owned, we're growing. Every time we grow our sales team, we're going to need more people in leadership with any department, really. So they're not going to feel like that little fish in a big pond when they come to us. So we drive that point for them that there'll be a lot of great leadership opportunities here. Another thing we look at again is that culture. We harp on a lot about what we've built here. We work hard, but we also like to have fun. So, we talk about having a game room, relaxation room with massage chairs. We talk about weekly incentives, even a president's cabinet trip that they can win if they earn it, really, by hitting certain milestones. And the last thing is compensation. Our compensation, we've updated it recently and very competitive. And I think it showed that we value their talent and their time by coming here. And that sets us apart from the competition. So I think by hitting those 3 things, if you're looking to target Gen Zs, it can help you set yourself apart from others as well.
So we're not afraid of those, the younger generation, because we've got a lot of them that have worked out at EIP with other positions that we hire for. I know we've got also, besides the life team, but we also have our customer support agents. What is that a very similar hiring process? Is it the same type of agents that we're looking for? I say agents because I know they're all licensed. What is that process like? Are they different or are they similar?
I think it's similar. With customer support, we still have them take the sales assessment. We just look at different criteria when it comes to that, because with the customer support role, they're helping existing clients. So, our agents on the phones, they're the ones that have to open up the door and hope that the client steps in. Customer support, the client's already here. They know us, they understand us, but we want to maintain that relationship and that, support that we have with them. So with customer support, we look at certain things, but really the same. It's culture fit, right? We built a great team here. We definitely want to make sure that they fit within our culture. They also have to have motivation and drive, because they do have sales quotas as well. They have to upscale or upsell to our clients. So we have to make sure that they have the opportunity to do that, and they're not afraid to answer certain questions, but also dig deep, ask questions, understand what the client really needs. And if we have a gap in coverage, they're the ones who are going to solve that problem. So it's a different conversation, but really we look at those similar things because, by having that motivation to drive and being coachable, you can do most of the roles here successfully.
Now, I don't think that there's a cheat code to getting hired at a certain place, but I'm sure there's definitely turnoffs, like not being able to answer the phone when we were supposed to have a phone screen, not showing up to the initial in-person meeting. What are some of the things that over the years that you've learned that really stand out when you go, oh, this person seems like they're going to be a great fit for the position?
Yeah, the first thing I always look at is coachability. Whether they have experience or not, can they humble themselves and really understand, whatever worked before or you thought worked, didn't work so well. That's why you're here, right? So trust the process, be coachable, really listen to your supervisors and trainers here, because they've all done it and they understand how it is to be successful. So I think coachability is one of the main things we look at. But I've also found that those that are hungry and have the drive to, like you said, pick up the phone and dial. I remember one time I was shadowing one of our newest classes, and our trainer said, all right, guys, let's go on break. We finished the last training session. And one of the agents stood up and said, let's get on the phone. I want to get on the phone now. So, that agent, he's hungry. He's ambitious. He's not afraid to get on the phones, where some new agents may be a little bit timid at first and love to be in a classroom because that means they're not on the phones, right? So those individuals who are hungry from the start tend to be a little bit more successful, because they're not afraid to just dial. No matter what mood they're in, they switch it up right away.
Now, eagerness and that hunger, I think that's awesome when you see it. It stands out. And I feel like I could kind of assess that if I was the person, if somebody seems motivated, just self-motivated. But how do you assess if somebody has coachability in the interview process? What are some of the things that you do to find that in a person?
Yeah, good question. So really in the phone screen, one of our main questions is, again, what is your future goals? Why sales, and how does EIP fit within that goal? To me, if someone has an answer that they've done their research, they know people in the industry, they know that this is the right fit for them, those individuals that sound confident, I know that this is something that they've, either tried before or thought about, and they're not willing to give up on that most of the time. Certain individuals that haven't done this at all or haven't even thought about it may just say, oh, it's just another job, and if it gets too hard, I'm just going to quit.
Yes, that makes sense. It's surprising when I've hired people in the past for different positions, and they just don't even know anything about not just the company, but don't know anything about like the position. They're like, oh yeah, it's sales, but they don't even realize it's insurance or something along those lines. And you just wonder, like, well, why'd you even apply? But that's part of why it takes 3,000 resumes to get to 30 people, right? There's a lot of those out there. Now, with that being said, you've got a team. How many people are on your team? Because 3,000 resumes to screen, all the different phone interviews. How many people work with you?
So right now I have a team of 3, including myself, and then I have 2 others, sales recruiter, and then I have a recruiting and onboarding specialist on my team. But we also collaborate closely with our operations coordinator. She helps a lot with our administrative work. And then we also work with our licensing team and also our sales leaders as well. So it's really a team effort when it comes to that.
But you guys are the ones doing the bulk of the phone interviews and the screening of the resumes and such, right?
Yeah. So I pretty much oversee like the overall recruiting strategy. So if it comes to managing our candidate pipeline, helping to schedule interviews, and just ensuring that there's like a strong, consistent candidate experience from start to finish. And then our sales recruiter, senior sales recruiter, he helps with the secondary virtual calls or interviews. So he works directly with or works really closely with our sales director, knows exactly what is needed in an individual to be a success here. So he'll determine if they'll go into that in-person interview. And then our recruiting and onboarding specialist, she helps a lot with our phone screens, also our onboarding. So once we hire somebody, she'll do all the onboarding paperwork. Also, when they're here, she'll ensure that they have a great experience. So we like to order breakfast on their first day. We order swag items to give it to them. Sometimes we mail it out before they come in. So overall, it takes a team effort from the screening to the interviewing to the onboarding.
That does sound like a lot of work. Now, all those people, 3,000 phone screens, how many people actually make it in when we're trying to hire 30 people? How many make it to an interview process?
Yeah, so from the 3,000, again, there might be some duplicates in there, some people who apply a few times. But throughout the interview funnel, as they progress, it goes down typically around 30 to 40%. So again, by the time they apply to phone screen, we've touched about 70% of those that apply. And then from the 70% that we've touched, maybe 50% of those will go into the OMG. Another 30% will pass the OMG, and then that's how we get to that 1%. So we are very intentional, selective in how we do it. But again, the volume does help from getting those clients.
The director of sales, he can't just interview hundreds and hundreds of people. So how many actually make it in the door for an in-person interview?
Yeah, so typically on average, if you want to hire at least 30, he's more than likely going to be seeing at least, I would say, 50 in-person interviews. So on average, he's rejecting about 15 to 20 individuals through the process. Again, if they don't fit the qualities or if they talk themselves out of the job.
Or if he talked them out of the job.
Or that too.
Which is actually, I hadn't thought about it, but it's one of those things where you actually do, in a way, want to talk people out of the job so that they're actually committed to it. Definitely going to have a conversation with him about that and learn a little bit more about his process, because that sounds interesting. And I hadn't thought about it that way.
Yeah, I mean, I do some of the exit interviews here. And one of the things that we ask is, did the recruiting team set the right expectation before coming in? And most of the time it's a yes. They understood that from day one. Again, our expectations here are high. We're not in the business of high turnover. We're in the business of producing some high tier agents. So in the beginning, the expectation is high from everyone that's here. So from memorizing a script, to getting up in front of everyone and saying the script that you memorize, you can't be shy here. And also just being coached, we invest a lot in our teams. And one of that is, daily coaching. So if you don't want someone, there all the time, just really helping you, to be a better agent, then this may not be the right fit for you. Because there are some other companies that may not invest as much as we do. And that's what differentiates us between our competitors.
A little earlier, you mentioned something about an exit interview. What is that and how do you use it? What have you learned from those different exit interviews over the years? Do you think it's a valuable thing? Obviously, it's valuable because we do them. But tell me a little bit more about that process and some of the things that you've learned that's helped us improve over the years.
Yeah, so we recently implemented exit interviews and they have been amazing. The feedback that we have received, good or bad, to really just ensure that we're continuing to build the culture that we have here. So the exit interview, we typically offer it to those individuals that are leaving, just to give us an opportunity to go through questions. And we basically start from the beginning. We ask them, How was the recruitment process? Was there anything we could have done to better align your expectation to the role? And then we go through all of the training. How was the training? Did that help prepare you? Was there anything where that was lacking in the training that we could help improve? All the way to our benefits. We talk about our healthcare benefits that we provide. Work-life balance. Was there any challenges that you experienced while working here? And then we open up the floor for them to give us any additional feedback from their time here. And I've used it myself, even in the recruitment process, refine what we're saying to our client or candidates over the phone to just ensure that their expectations are met. Because the last thing we want is for someone to come in and not know certain things and not be the deal breaker. So we've learned a lot about that and also about our training as well. So implementing that, I think I highly recommend it for every aspect of the agent's journey through your company, and sharing that feedback with your leadership as well so that they can implement some changes to improve the experience from all of our new agents coming through. And I do believe that's going to help our retention as well.
And I think it's important to look at, because sometimes people aren't leaving because of something that went on at the company, and you can still get valuable information out of them. For instance, I know we've had several people that have just moved, right? Their wife or their kids or something along those lines, that they needed to move and go somewhere else, and they can no longer be in the office. And so you can get real positive feedback, but it's also super important to get the negative feedback. If somebody came in, you never know why they left unless you ask them. And so how do you improve? What can you do different? And I'm sure that we've learned a lot of things. I think that is a very important thing. And I highly recommend to everybody that's not doing an exit interview, maybe because you think it might be awkward or weird or something along those lines. I think you got to force yourself to do it, because it is a important way to learn and grow and make your business that much more effective. I know a big part about hiring somebody is the reputation that you have as a company. And so what are some of the things that we do at EIP to try to have that good reputation, besides just being a good employer, but actually getting the news out? I think you're a big part of that. I know I get some of the different surveys that you're asking about us. And what are some of those things?
Yeah, and you talked about Gen Z, so we can start there as well. But TikTok, we have a TikTok page there. We've done a couple videos. We've actually had some people apply from what they've seen on TikTok. So just showcasing your culture out on social media is a big one. If the demographic you're looking to hire or just a certain individual you're looking to hire is online, it's important to show that culture, because it's going to want them to show up to that phone screen and want to talk to you. So just having a really great social media presence, also be involved in the community. EIP does amazing, fundraisers and donations and all that. So being able to showcase that on your social media just shows that we, have really, really great core values here as well. And it helps with our reputation online. But also nothing beats inviting a candidate to come into your office and, having them feel the energy, the people, the space that you've created, because you want to showcase that. With EIP, we're proud of what we built here, and we have something special. And so once people see that, they want to be a part of it, and they're willing to stick it through even when it gets tough.
I was on the sales floor yesterday, and I think everybody claps every time a sale is made. And we were there for probably 15, 20 minutes. We were walking around with a couple people, and I bet you if there was 10 different moments where people were clapping and everybody's a part of it. It's definitely an upbeat environment. So I can see how having somebody walk in and experience that would be enticing. Now, with the different events that we do, I know we do a wheelchairs events for kids around Christmas time. We collect cans for people around Thanksgiving. Are you the one that coordinates a lot of that?
So we do have a culture committee here. So I help to run the culture committee. And I think that that's another reason, again, why our culture is able to stay the way it is and grow and really be the best in the industry, is we use the feedback real time from our current employees and to create a great environment here. So our culture committee meets once a month and is consistent of we have agents, we have people from different departments, departments, we take their feedback and also the company's feedback, and we do events like you mentioned. We do a lot of cans giving during the holidays. We also do monthly events. Like this Friday is Laffy Taffy Day. So we're going to invite everyone to wear colorful clothing, and we're going to pass out candy and have a great competition. They're going to win gift cards. And you'd be surprised. A lot of people love it. They love to dress up and be a part of the culture. So I think it brings us together by, again, maintaining this amazing culture, and it just seeps through the doors and in the walls. People love it. And we hear it a lot in recruiting, especially during the phone screen. Some people will say, yeah, I did my research on EIP. I love the culture. It seems great. And they may have only seen one video. So if they already love it, can you imagine what they'll do when they come in and see it, you know?
I've had a couple people actually DM our Elite Brokerage account and say, hey, I want to get a job at Elite Insurance Partners. And always the first question I ask is, are you local? Because they've got to come into the office. We don't do any remote, at least on our sales agent side. And so when they are local, I'm like, well, kudos to you that you figured out that we are in your area. And then I pass them over to you. And so I know that we've had that happen quite a few times on the brokerage page, but it's good to hear on all the other pages as well. We've gone over so many different things today, Lisandra. It's been great. We've covered from, the amount of people that we hire, how it's changed over the years, the different types of things. I think the one thing that stands out to me is coachability is key, as well as culture and being able to share that with everybody. But what are something that you deal with on a day-to-day basis in our industry, in your role, that you don't think enough people know about, or you think that's important that maybe we hadn't touched on today?
Yeah, I think that when someone's, looking for a position, it's very important for them to do their research. As I mentioned before, it's just ensuring that the job that you're applying for is something that you want to do for long term. So as an employer, you have to ensure that you're building that culture. So when someone's doing that research, you stand out. You stand out ahead of your competition. So it really starts with the internal people that you hire. So making sure that you're hiring the right people to build the culture and to keep it going. If there's at least one bad seed, you can't have that, right? It's going to ruin your whole culture. So keeping that as a forefront of your hiring decisions is just ensuring that they're the right culture fit. Not only that, understanding what their motivation and their why, get to know the people that apply for your positions, forget about, that they have 10 years of experience in the industry. What's their drive? Do they have a family that they have to provide for? Do they have bills to pay? What's going to keep them here when things get tough? Because with any job, things are going to get tough. But you really want to understand their motivation. And if it does get tough, talk to them about it, because it shows that you care and that you've listened. And lastly, it's just to ensure that as long as you have this process going, make sure that everyone is on your team is all for it. They're 100% in, all your leadership team, even the agents on the phone. As long as they buy into the process and buy into your culture, you'll be unstoppable at that point.
Awesome. It's been great talking with you today. That was a very insightful interview. I didn't even realize how much goes into the entire process. I know we go over it in the meetings on a weekly basis, but it's so much more than I even understood.
Well, I appreciate your time. Thank you.